Hi, everyone. Greg Pellegrom here, co-founder and CEO of SmileSnap. On this episode podcast, we're going to get into the conversation around teledentistry and what that means, from virtual consultations to remote monitoring and the convenience that it can provide for your patients, and how to grow your practices by converting more online consumers into patients.
OrthoMarketing.com, 360-degree digital marketing solutions for your practice.
Hello, everybody in podcast land, and welcome back to another Aligner Insider podcast. It is now late January 2022. The world is back into chaos, but it's if you're in a part of the world where you're expecting snow and things are cold, may you stay warm, may you stay safe. And Dr. Glaser is here with me to talk a little bit in regards to some great technologies, and we have a very special guest back as well. So, Barry, how are you to this fine day?
I am doing great, Dean. Nice to see you again.
And good to be seen. And so we're going to talk today about technology and talk about teledentistry and talk about adapting your practice again. And adaptations are a big underlying factor in many of our podcasts. And we have with us Greg Pellegrom, who's the CEO of SmileSnap, and Greg is here to talk about platforms and technologies and how SmileSnap has changed quite a lot over the last few years. Since they started, and how things are adapting, and practices how they're changing now. So, Greg, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks, Dean, for having me on. This is kind of part two, and I'm excited to share, some of the stuff that we've learned in the last year and a half as this whole technology continues to evolve. So appreciate you having me back.
Oh, my pleasure. And it's so we're gonna kind of jump right into it, so Barry, as far as using virtual teledentistry and using virtual orthodontics and orthodontics on demand, how has that changed your practice, and is it here to stay as far as you're concerned?
Oh, I definitely think it's here to stay. I mean, so I'll answer that part first. So I definitely think it's here to stay. We have such a rapid change in technology. I mean, you think about like the iPhone, what was it? 13 years ago, 14 years ago, I'm trying to think when it was 2007, 2008, but how much things have changed in a relatively short period of time. But even from then, like when the first iPhone came out, where you thought, well, it's going to be a telephone, right? It was a mobile phone to make phone calls, right? But that's what it was for the most part, to not really being like, sort of like a second brain that you have, that it reminds you of things. You have the world's information at your fingertips, and I don't think even when the smartphone came out, we even knew what that meant. So things are just changing so quickly, and along with that, consumers are changing quickly, and patients are changing that quickly. And I mean, think about it. If I said to you in 2008, "Oh, I'm just going to get an Uber," you'd be like, "We're going to Germany? What's an Uber?" I mean, think about it. So all of these things. I mean, and think about like human history, where like we were like in the Stone Ages for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, and everything was done basically the same. I mean, humans are not really set up biologically to deal with such rapid change like we've seen since, let's say, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. But the technological revolution that we're having now, I mean, things are different every week. So yeah, so when it comes to things like this, human beings have become accustomed to getting anything and everything they want from their phones, whether it's food or
Like
a
that.
ride
And the problem is,
or tickets or whatever it is.
right.
And I mean, unless we have some kind of an apocalypse, I don't see that changing. So yeah, I think virtual teledentistry platforms are here to stay. And on top of that, Greg, I mean, we could talk about this too, but I mean, what SmileSnap is doing now is going to be probably completely different from what you're doing in 12 to 18 months. So even innovators like you that are on the front of that curve, that wave is moving so quickly, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Like my partner always says, software is never done. In fact, we have a pretty massive release that we're admittedly so a few months behind on releasing, but it will come out Q1 of 2022 this year. That is probably the biggest overhaul of our platform since we released in April of 2019. And there's going to be a lot of great features, but it's really about improving that patient or that user experience to make things easier, to make the results that much better for them, as well as on the practice side, trying to really streamline that whole process and continually adding features as we build this thing out, because it is absolutely here to stay. And if practices look at virtual consultations as it relates to patient acquisition as a passing fad or a COVID related thing, I'm sorry, but I feel bad. You just don't get the way that today's consumers think and operate. So I would try to change your mindset on that.
Yeah, Greg, and I forgot what part one of your question was, Dean, but I think maybe one of the things, and I've seen this, because I'm a big fan of SmileSnap, and maybe one of the things that I've seen, like on the Facebook groups, the orthodontic closed groups, is maybe it's a misconception that you could. I know we've done this before, but maybe it's worthwhile repeating to clear up that, like, what when we call them virtual consultations, there's certain things that they are, and there's certain things that they really aren't. And I think maybe some doctors are up in arms that they think, how can you diagnose and treatment plan a case from a set of smartphone photos that a patient sends to you? So, how do you answer that when you have the rightful concerns of doctors that maybe we're somehow skipping steps or cheapening the profession?
Yeah, absolutely. Dean, I'm sorry, Barry, great question.
Hard to tell the difference, right?
It's the let me talk a little bit first about who are we actually targeting with this type of option of technology to a practice. So for decades, we've relied as an industry on patient referrals and doctor referrals to our orthodontic practices. And that essentially is really who we've treated for the longest time. And where we have really failed as an industry to tap into is that larger market of people who don't really put oral health care top of mind always, but they want to do something, they're interested. And there's about 180 to 200 million of these people out there that need some type of tooth alignment or bite correction. And how do we tap into them? Well, the best way to do it, most of these folks are pretty rampant online consumers, and we have to connect with them digitally. And where does that start? Usually all starts at your website. And on your website, when people do go there because they're interested, they're curious, they want to find out some meaningful information, if you don't offer them a way to quickly and easily engage with you, they're likely to go to the next website. And if that website doesn't have it, they're going to go to the next one until they find what they're looking for. And if they don't find what they're looking for, next thing you know, they won't do anything. So we've got to have, whether it's live chat, whether it's online scheduling, whether it's a virtual consult widget like SmileSnap, or some combination of all, we've got to give them a way to engage with us on their time and wherever they're at. And this is how we bring in more of this untapped market, these online consumers. Now, they think and operate differently, because this is what we hear a lot, as Dean, I'm sure you do too, is bad leads. They don't submit their photos. They didn't answer all the questions. We called them after it, but they didn't get back to us. Yeah, you're going to get bad leads. Our goal is, how do we find, out of, let's say, every 10, do we quickly and easily filter out the 5 that are just garbage? Okay. We want to quickly identify, no, this isn't it. And then out of the other 5, how do we figure out how to quickly and easily engage with them and get them interested enough to move to that next step, ultimately converting them into patients? So out of every 10, if we pick up 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5, that is worth our time. And, that's who we're after with virtual consultations.
It's so important, as you mentioned before, as the first one to grab the consumer and interact with them is going to be the winner. some interesting marketing statistics is that if you don't communicate, correspond, interact with somebody within 10 minutes, the chance of them coming in drops 900%.
Mm.
Okay. Then, okay, the average person needs to be reached out to 6 times in order for you to actually have that conversation with them if you can't do it immediately. So
Yeah.
when you said that they don't give you the information or it's a bad lead, I can't have many clients of mine say, these leads are terrible. Like, well, how'd you follow up? Well, we left a message. How many times?
Yeah.
Once. And when did
Yeah.
you get the message? Like 4 days later.
Right.
Right.
No. Okay. So within 10 minutes, you have to respond to them and then reach out to them 6 other times in order to get them. And people are busy. And you have to communicate with them multiple ways. Not nobody, Barry, I'm sure you can test this. If you could count how many, or percentage wise, off the top of your head, 10 years ago, the amount of new patients who, percentage of people who called you to inquire about your practice versus now don't even want to pick up the phone, don't know how to pick up the phone, and now
Mhm.
want to do it via the website, schedule that way, fill out a form, request information that way. It's a seismic change in there.
Right.
And nobody picks up. I can't remember the last time that I came in and heard a voicemail. Nobody leaves voicemails.
Right.
It's all text or emails. So you have to have these type of programs in place to make things work well. And it's important to have things. So one thing, Greg, you're probably coming up with this 2.0 or 3.0, whatever number you're at there. But Barry, you can say this: if somebody doesn't take the pictures or the pictures don't come in the right way, what happens then? Because there are a lot of people. Well, I could just have people take a picture and upload it to my website. No, you have to use the right technology and the right program. I've got clients that didn't want to invest the minuscule amount of money to work in a SmileSnap, which is ridiculous because the ROI is incredible for it. But we have people like could take a picture and upload it to us. No, you have to use the right technology and be taught the right way to do so. And it's got to be frustrating for people who don't get it. You know,
So maybe a good analogy, would be, going back to the taxi model. So you can have a taxi stand in Manhattan, and people are going to walk by, and people are going to need a taxi, to this day, and they'll go to that taxi, or you stick your hand out and you hail a cab, and hey, good luck with that, like Felix Unger. Um, but what I mean, how many people around the corner do you miss? So I think there's still a lot of orthodontists that have that taxi stand mentality when you really need to have the Lyft or the Uber mentality. One thing I just to complete here, Greg. One thing I wanted to say was that maybe, again, one of the things that doctors are concerned about is that, how can you really do like a full consultation? Sometimes I think of it more as a virtual engagement as opposed to a virtual consultation, because
Mhm.
it does not take the place of full records and x-rays and an exam and diagnosis and treatment planning. And I think maybe for some doctors, they get stuck on that idea that, it seems like we're going to skip steps and not,
Sure.
really work up the case. So I think of it more for us, at least my practice, it's a patient acquisition tool. It's a virtual, we engage with the patients. And you know what, Dean, even if they don't submit photos, some people can't, or are incapable, or, not everybody's so tech savvy these days. But we can message them directly on the SmileSnap app. I can send them a text and say, "Hey, like, actually, I just have one just this about 20 minutes ago. Patient spits pictures. I can see from the pictures that they submitted with their phone, they've got calculus on their teeth, they've got gum disease." And I just messaged them back. I didn't send them a treatment plan. I said, and they told me who their dentist is, Jimmy Ward, a really good guy. I said, you know what? I'm going to reach out to Dr. Ward tomorrow, get a little bit more information about your case, and then we'll contact you after that. But now I've acquired that patient. So whether or not you call it a consultation, Greg, I think is sort of not really the point. The point is that it's like you can have the taxi stand. Yeah, I guess you can still have your name in the yellow pages, right, Dean, if that something exists.
You
But
can. The yellow pages went like this to this.
right. But you're
But
going to
it's a
miss all those people still in the club that are looking for a ride home, that are
exactly.
that are using Uber or Lyft. So I think that this is just an extension, of the ways that you market your practice to acquire, which is the lifeblood of a practice, which is new patient exams and new patient starts.
And they have to have another way to communicate. Typically, clients of ours have at least 3 to 4 different ways for people to contact them to inquire about their services. Besides the old ways of the phone call, people can fill out a form, request information. They can schedule right there. They can do a spouse up. They can do a live chat. So there's multiple ways that people want to communicate. I mean, I probably did a live chat 4 or 5 times today on websites that I wanted to get
Right.
information on versus pick up the phone and call.
Right. So it's
So
a funny question to say, like, is live chat here to stay, or is it going to be a passing fad? And it's like, well, I don't think there's any, like I said, unless there's some seismic shift in the way that we communicate with each other, these virtual tools are only going to become more sophisticated, and more ingrained into our daily lives than they are now.
Yeah, and Barry, you probably, this example that you just gave, this real life example, is uh, you know, you probably saved this individual a visit to your office to be told that he has to go back to his dentist and have a cleaning first before he can do anything. And
Yep.
you handled it through our mobile app in a matter of a couple of minutes, rather than taking up a valuable consultation time slot. So it's a benefit to you and your practice. It's also a benefit to he, as now you're likely going to become patient, because he really appreciates now you've built trust with him. You've respected his time. You gave him what he was looking for and needed in a very quick and efficient manner. Sometimes, back to the point of, is this a full consultation platform? No. Obviously, we still have to have patients come in and take full records. But
Right.
to get them to your door, sometimes we have to leave a trail of breadcrumbs. And those breadcrumbs can be a recorded video message through our platform, which is very powerful, to tell them enough information to make them want to move to the next step. Now, some of them may be fine with just that recorded video and some information. Great, I'm ready to move to the next step. Others may still want to engage even a little bit further. And that's why we also have synchronous video built in, or live video chat, where maybe we do need to schedule, whether it's with the doctor or likely just the treatment coordinator can do this, to answer some more questions before they move to that next step. Again, some require fewer breadcrumbs, some require more breadcrumbs, but ultimately it's about getting them to the door. Now, once we get them there through SmileSnap, what our customers tell us their biggest benefit is, as we filter out the bad and we qualify the good, when they do come in, we convert them at a very high percentage because we've provided them with some meaningful information that they typically want to know, which is, what do I need? Give me an idea what it costs. We don't have to get down to the penny. And, roughly how long does it take? And even if you take it one step further, how many visits? And you can even let them know that through our platform, which I think is very important, especially if anyone had braces as a kid and now they're thinking about it as an adult. Are they thinking 3 years and 36 visits? And when you tell them it's 12 to 14 months and I'm only going to need to see you 4 to 6 times because we use a remote monitoring platform, that's music to their ears.
Right. Well, you mentioned before about closing. Greg, do you have any statistics off the bat or just overall guesses of how successful practices are turning virtual teledentistry leads into starts?
Yeah. So because we're not directly tied in with practice management software systems, we can't say for sure across the board what that is. If the individual practice is staying up on the statuses of each patient and marking them accordingly, whether they started treatment or not, then we can tell. Anecdotally, what our top customers will tell us is, yes, out of every 10 that come in, we're seeing 3 or 4 come into the office, and those are converting at a very high percentage, like 95 plus. One statistic that I will share is that 35% of our consultation requests that come through happen after 5 o'clock or on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And
Big number.
it's awesome to see it come in Even on holidays. We had about 15 people on Christmas. Now, 15 is a very low number for us. We typically are seeing over 500 requests flow through our platform in a day. But it just shows that people will use this tool if you offer it to them.
It makes life easier across the board for everybody. Barry, how has it changed your practice by implementing digital technologies from both ends, from a patient acquisition position, as well as a virtual monitoring platform as well. So both sides of it, I'm a user of your services, and I use your virtual monitoring, and it's, listen, I love you, man, but I've only seen you a few times in almost a year and a half because it works. So how is adapting something like this changed you, change your practice, and just change your overall um, perception as far as business goes?
So it's interesting, Dean. I'm actually right now taking an online course that's co-sponsored by the AAO and the Wharton School. It's like an 8-week online course for like the business of orthodontics. So I'm learning a lot more about sort of the details of like the real principles of business, not just the seat of the pants stuff that I've learned over the years. And so I can give you some basic statistics. So last year, in still a pandemic. I mean, the pandemic kind of waxed and waned, but we had a 20% increase in growth in gross revenue. So on the revenue side, we're going up. We increased probably just 20% in new patient starts. We had an increase in new patient exams. So on the patient acquisition side of the equation, we're attracting more patients and we're starting more patients. On the practice efficiency side, because you also have to think about processes too, where I'm doing that on a reduced schedule from what I traditionally did. I work, Monday and Wednesday, I work from 9 to 5, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I work from like 1 to 6. So essentially, if you combine that together, it's 2 full days and 2 half days. It's 3 days a week,
Almost,
and I
almost
still have I still have probably, I'm only, if I had to pick a number, I don't know this number off the top of my head, but I'm probably at about 60% capacity. So the digital tools have not only helped to bring more patients in, through SmileSnap, but like the things like dental monitoring, those other things have made the practice so much more efficient because we're reducing the patient flow that has to have to physically flow through my office on a daily basis. Yet we're still able to monitor their treatment and see them all the time. So the practice is growing, and I also have created more room for additional growth. So as a small business owner, that's music to my ears.
sure.
And,
Greg, have
and,
you heard
and
any?
Dean, I'll add to that, Dean, is
Yeah,
that my 15-year-old son is in Invisalign right now with Dr. Keith Kors, who practices in Aurora, Colorado. And like you and Barry, Keith and I are very good friends and I like to see him, but there was nothing better to hear than the day we went in to get his trays delivered, and they coached him on how to properly use the scan box from dental monitoring. But when we were checking out at the front desk and they said, Dr. Kors would like to see Chase back in 4 months,
versus 4 weeks.
that's when I just lit up like, man, that's awesome. I'm not pulling him out of school. My wife and I aren't figuring out who's going to take him that day. And that's what your customers, your patients, your consumers will rave about when you tell them that to all the other moms in the neighborhood and their friends and family. That's very powerful. Very powerful.
Yeah, you bet. And on top of it, Greg, I don't know if you have my SmileSnap dashboard in front of you, but I think we're probably right around 60 patients that we've acquired through SmileSnap. So that, creating that room for growth and then attracting new patients, having more new patient exams, these digital tools, everything fits together. So without SmileSnap, 60 starts is a lot of starts not to have.
It sure is.
And yeah, so
Yeah.
overall, it's been really, it's easy. It's so easy to integrate. staff, because one of the things I think doctors, listen, we're all afraid of change. I shouldn't say that. I mean, but change for a lot of people is hard. Not everybody,
Mhm.
but for it's hard. Making even small changes as an office can turn everything upside down and have grouchy doctors and grouchy staff and all of that. But when you introduce things that make their lives easier every day, fewer patients to see, more time in between to prep the chairs and to write up charts, and then maybe spending some time on the computer interacting with the SmileSnap patients or with the dental monitoring patients. I mean, what's not to like? I mean, the staff love it. It's an easier day. On top of everything else, the staff. I'm getting older. My staff's getting younger. So the staff that we're hiring tend to be digital natives anyway. So this
Mm.
is they're accustomed to either working from home or using digital tools anyway. So it really speaks the staff's language as well. I mean, have you gotten that feedback from your practices, Greg?
We have some practices that are seeing such great volume in requests through our platform that they have hired their own remote treatment coordinators that work from home that focus specifically on patients that are coming through our platform. Think about that for a second. In this, on top of COVID now, we've coupled it with this labor crisis that we're facing in our country. And it's all businesses, all industries, but it's really hitting dentistry hard. Um, and I would bet that every orthodontist out there has lost a treatment coordinator, whether it be to be a stay-at-home mom, or maybe their spouse's job took them out of state or whatever. Traditionally, you have to hire a treatment coordinator to come into your office, so they're in the same zip code or an adjacent one. Now you have access to a whole pool of potential treatment coordinators that could work from home. And you can incentivize them in different ways. You don't have to pay them a salary or pay them hourly. You can pay them per conversion of a patient that comes in through a virtual platform. And, you know, that literally is an extension of your business, your new sales arm. Your in house TC doesn't have to think or worry about these patients. They can continue to focus and do the job the way that they've traditionally done it and have someone else do it. Now, yes, you have to have decent enough volume. You have to have trust in that person. But we need to rethink as orthodontists what some of the roles and positions are within our practice. Um, and a remote TC doing virtual consults is just one of them, but we have several customers that have done that, or they're outsourcing it now. There's other services that are popping up
Right.
that are offering that remote, that follow up, follow through process. And Dean, you hit on it earlier. It is a lot for somebody who isn't used to following up with these people to, we do it one time, but do we do it a second or a third in different ways? Is it a phone call? Is it a text? Is it an email?
Yes, yes,
Um,
and yes.
so whether you hire someone remote to do it, if you can't get your in-house TC, or you outsource it to someone, what you will pay compared to what you can generate in revenue and profit for the practice, it's minuscule.
It is. The return on investment is just ridiculous of how much you can make off of it if you have the right way. You have to promote it too, and that's the important part. Is you could have a program, you could have a million different great widgets or SaaS programs in place, but if you don't know how to promote it, position it, market it the right way, it's going to be lost. And you have to have the right program in place, just like somebody comes in for Invisalign, you don't put tray 14 before tray 2. Well, when you have a marketing program in place, you have to have a game plan, a strategy, and know how to promote it the right way in order for it to work. And Dr. Glaser's got this pretty awesome marketing company that taught him how to do it, and it's worked. It's worked very well for him as far as giving him probably his best return investment he's ever had is in the practice standpoint there.
And let's not forget, Dean, you did have to twist his arm to try
But
SmileSnap.
Absolutely, that is true. I'm not going to lie. Dean came to me and I'm like, Dean, another harebrained scheme, right?
but
And finally, he was like, because I was like, I think at least for a month or two, I was like, too busy, blah blah, all the excuses. And
right,
listen,
Yeah.
all the excuses. And at some point, Dean was just like, look, we're doing this. Lindsay, my treatment coordinator, I incentivized her. She gets a little bonus for SmileSnap Start, and that spoke her language, and it instantly. And on top of everything else, it was timed. It was in March of 2020, so it was timed, um, for better or worse, with our shutdown, our
Sure.
COVID shutdown for 3 months. So it was like the right time and the right place. But yeah, I definitely, even I try to think of myself as a forward-thinking guy, but we all get stuck in our little ruts at times. So yeah, Dean did have to twist my arm a little bit to get started.
Yeah.
Dean, we tell every single one of our customers it all starts with marketing,
Yeah,
with,
across the
with
board.
virtual consults.
Yeah,
If you're going to implement our platform, but you're not doing any marketing or minimal or a lot of the traditional stuff, it's a recipe for disappointment. Now, if you're only expecting to get a low volume and pick up maybe 1 or 2 patients a month and you're okay with that, different story. But if those are, really wanting to maximize the value out of offering a digital experience for new patients, you've got to promote it,
you
right?
got it.
You've got to position it properly on the website, have landing pages, multiple call to actions. People have to know, what the heck is this? Like, I've heard virtual consult, but I haven't done one yet for an orthodontist. Anything you can do to sort of educate them, you will get a much better result, as well as campaign ads. Like, you have to be strategic in, what, let's run an ad on Facebook and Instagram this month around virtual consultations and make it really easy for someone from their couch to click a button. And next thing you know, they're taking pictures of their teeth
Right.
and go from there. So, Dean, it all starts with what you do at Ortho Marketing, to really drive that volume of eyeballs to it.
We're constantly changing our programs and ideas to help position our practices the right way. And you have to adapt. You've got, practices have more competition than ever before, and you have to stand out. And thanks to got some of these, DTC companies are falling apart now. So at least now people are going to the right process and the right people to do it. But still, you've got people, more and more competition than ever before. So in order for you to make their life easier, more efficient, more effective, you've got to have programs like this in place. So, in closing, Greg, what advice would you give somebody who is thinking of taking their practice to the next level, or just started with looking at you or looking at another program that they should really embrace? So, if one thing they could do today, what's one thing that you suggest they do to implement, embrace, and help their practice go with using virtual consultations, the whole dentistry, SmileSnap?
Yeah, I've worked with orthodontists now for almost 20 years, and I know the beast that I deal with some days, and they can be master rejectionists on a lot of things, right? It starts in school when they are sort of trained and taught to pick each other's cases apart and dissect research and things like that.
Right.
I would ask them to really shift their mind and put themselves into the consumer's shoes for a minute. And rather than it always having to be the equation of, no, the patient needs to come in when we're available. They need to come in on the days that we're open. They need to fit into the time slots of the consults that we have available. Flip that, okay? And really shift your mind to more, how can we be more Amazon, more Netflix, more Uber to the consumer, and look into these platforms. And don't be afraid to, make that implementation of this technology and stick with it. Don't give up on it. It's only going to improve. It's only going to get easier and better. And, look into what's out there and give it a shot. But mentally, you've got to shift from the old way to sort of this new way. I know orthodontics, it's been around a long time, and traditionally they don't change and adapt very quickly or easily.
Right.
Um,
They gotta, like any business.
yeah, but we've got to, because Fighting over the same size slice of pie year after year
Mhm.
isn't going to work. We've got to increase the size of that slice of pie that we're able to go after. And there's plenty of people out there who want to do something to straighten their teeth or correct their bite. And we've got to give them the tools to reach out and engage 24/7, 365.
And Barry, if you were to give any of your colleagues a bit of advice as far as what they can do to take their practice to the next level when it comes to technology, what would you say to them?
Well, first I would say don't be like me, an old stick in the mud. Listen, I think that my best advice would be for trying something new, sit down on with a piece of paper and on one side write the pros and on the other side write the cons. And I think what you find when you try something new, the upside, the is much better than the downside. Like what if you use SmileSnap for a year? What's the worst that can happen? I mean, it's a minimal investment compared to other technologies in my practice. I mean, honestly, you get one case start from it for a year, you're probably going to be past the break even point.
Way past.
So I think you have to write down what's the best thing that can happen and what's the worst thing that can happen. And I think you will find universally that the upside is much greater than the potential downside. So I think that you try to open your mind. That phrase, which is a killer of innovation, is we've never done it like this before. That's not how we do it here. It doesn't work here. Those kinds of phrases
Technology.
are, I mean, for generations, for
Exactly.
for hundreds and hundreds, for millennia, have always been wrong. Because the only thing that's constant in life is change, and I think that as much as we think things are the same, this certainly in these times that's not the case. So I think that you have to try things, especially things that are really you're not going to go broke.
Exactly. Right.
It's I mean what's the worst that can happen? And I think that's a great question to ask.
Right.
So I think that would be my best advice.
So this is great, guys, and please, everybody listening, you have to adapt. You have to embrace change. You have to adapt to the times. And this is a program, from SmileSnap or not, just you have to be able to take your practice to the level where people are expecting it to be. If you own a restaurant, nobody's going to call you up and say, "Can I make a reservation tonight?" They want to do it on the website. Okay, if you want to go to Instacart and buy food, you don't have to call them up and say, "Can I have bananas, please?" No, you want to add it to your cart. The same thing here. This is the world we're in now. So adapt, and you will see a massive return on your investment if you do this correctly, and of course, market it and promote it the right way. So, Greg, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Everybody out in podcast land, be safe, be happy, and and you'll see in the show notes here a link in there for the ability to sign up and get a discount through Ortho Marketing to SmileSnap as well. It's even better. So please take a look at that. And if you want to reach out to Greg, what's the best way for somebody to reach out to you or get more information about your process or do a demo?
Email me directly if you have questions. It's Greg, Greg, at smilesnap.com. If you want to dive right into a live demo, you can go to our website, smilesnap.com, sign up for a demo, and one of our account executives will take you through about a 30-minute live demo of the software and answer all your questions.
Perfect. Great. So everybody out there, be safe, be happy. Those of you who are football fans and you're hearing this soon, enjoy the upcoming playoffs. It's been a pretty great ride so far. And for us Jet fans, this next year is the year. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Be safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
OrthoMarketing.com. 360-degree digital marketing solutions for your practice.